On today's episode of Locked On Lightning, we're continuing our player reviews. On today's episode, we're discussing Mikhail Sergachev.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Danker. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On Lightning. Just a reminder, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On today's episode, we're continuing our player reviews. We got done talking about Nick Paul last week. Today, we're talking about Mikhail Sergachev. Before we grab any of the topics that we have laid out on today's show, I just want to humbly ask you to go ahead and download and subscribe to the podcast. We're available wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. Drop a comment below this video. Let me know how you felt about Mikhail Sergachev's season. And it was an interesting season, to say the least, for Mikhail. Other than the fact that he broke his leg, which was just really just a frustrating turn of events for everybody, not just him, but just everybody that, all Lightning fans. He was out for a while and just first game back from injury, and he has just such a catastrophic injury like that. Where you kind of felt, with him and just this team that they were going to hit their stride, and the Lightning did actually eventually hit their stride. But with a guy like him, it's always frustrating because he does play such a big part on this team. And looking back on it, since he missed really, and I felt like even in the playoff games that he played, I didn't feel like he really was 100%, even though he did have an assist in that first game back. You never really, I felt like he never got back to that level of comfort that he was at during the regular season. And when you look at his season, you try to put a grade on it. I feel like to a certain extent, you're not really giving him justice. And just an apology to my listeners and everybody listening to this. It's that time of year where I forget to turn off my air conditioner during recordings. So we might have some of that this summer. But 34 games, 2 goals, 17 assists, equals out to 19 points. Obviously, the glaring thing there out of all that is the plus minus. I did speak about it on the Nick Paul episode, and I will continue to say this as a disclaimer for every episode that we do our reviews. I'm not going to hold the plus minus against anybody, whether it's good or it's bad, especially if it's bad. Just because it was one of those things where we acknowledged early on that this team was not good defensively, and they were just really brutal, and it's just, you're going to get bad plus minuses really across the board, and that's just, it is what it is. But with Mikhail, looking at his season, it's kind of, if you don't know what happened, if you don't know, like if you just had a very basic understanding of how NHL stats work, and what they signify, and then on top of that, you had no idea how many games were played in the season. 34 games played, 19 points. not necessarily too shabby for those amount of games. I will say, and we'll talk about more about this as we go on with this episode, but really it was disappointing to see with him this year, because I kind of felt over the last couple of years, and we've been saying this really since 1920, is that you always felt like his offense was going to get better and better and better every single year, and it has. He went from really averaging 35 point seasons to last year he had 64. But like I said, you got to throw an asterisk on this season just because the amount of games that he missed, especially due to that leg that he just hurt so badly, broke many pieces in many places, excuse me, and tore many ligaments in that game in Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. But I will say, I think we could all agree early on, and in the games he did play for the most part, it was really kind of frustrating at times to see him play because he did really regress this year. And really, you kind of, like I said, that's what kind of made his comeback, well, his brief comeback, so disappointing, because you kind of felt that injury bug was behind you, and you could just focus on getting better. And we just didn't get a chance to see that from him this year. Really, unfortunately, he kind of, in a way, got cheated out of a season. And it sucks. It really does. Losing 48 games. I mean, that's really something that really sucks. And especially for a guy at this point in his career, starting to see like it's starting to round out for him in terms of his talent and his potential. But a lot of that had to do this year, I think, really, when you kind of look at his game from an early standpoint to start the season. It was very disappointing to see because he kind of lost that edge, I think, to his game. I didn't think that he was really at all productive offensively in the first couple of months. I really thought he was very timid at times with the puck, and when he did have the puck, he did not do a good job with puck possession, something that he has struggled with immensely in years past, especially up in the high slot areas, as well as at the point, just not being able to take care of the puck, and oftentimes, as the case happens with defensemen that aren't able to do that, leading to breakaway chances down the other side. And that was something that the Lightning were not really able to afford to or allow to happen, just because of the situation to start the season with Andrei Vasilevsky. But like I said, if you look at the games played versus really how many points he got, it's not as bad as you. I mean, obviously you want to get something, you want to obviously have those points higher, but at the same time, as much as I want to rip him for the lack of offensive production, because let's face it, and we'll talk about this in the second segment, about where he's at right now, with his age and the amount of years he's been at the NHL level. Really, is he at his prime? But you kind of figured, like I said, and like I pretty much say every year when we're talking about Mikhail Sergachev, is that you're expecting him to take that next step. And kind of by all accounts, last year was kind of going to be the last year where you saw some sort of an immature game from him. And this year you were going to start to see really that big boy kind of hockey that you would expect out of a defenseman that has been at the NHL level as long as he has. So we'll talk about that more so coming up in the next segment. Has he finally hit his prime? I'm sure a lot of you will have some comments and other thoughts about that. I'm sure you'll have some other comments about his season. If I had to grade his season, I'd give him a C+. I could give it an F just because it was just really just a setback year. Not necessarily his fault, but, the games he did play, I really thought he could have played a lot better overall. Not to say that, his play was not affected by just the lack there of production and good play at times by his teammates. So, and that will be somewhat of a theme, I guess, as we're going through these player reviews. So definitely keep an eye out for that as we're putting more of these out. But coming up in the second segment, we're going to talk about, has he hit his prime? Been in the league for quite some time, been in Tampa for quite some time. We talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about our first sponsor on today's show, and that is our friends over at FanDuel. Now, listen, it's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So as always, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and download our latest episode in audio form from all audio platforms. You could also watch our show on YouTube on our channel. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, hit the thumbs up button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts, and we can only do it with your help. So go ahead, and if you want to reach out to me or the show, you can follow me at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK, or if you want to reach out to the show instead, LO_lightning on Twitter or LockedOn_lightning on Instagram. You could also find some of my other work at boltbythebay.com. And I'm working on an article right now. It should be out within the day or so at the time of this recording, so probably in a day or so. I was talking about some of the highest moments and the lowest moments, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but really more so I'm trying to keep it at the highest moments. And I was debating whether or not in that in that article, to talk about Mikhail Sergachev coming back from injury and playing that game in MSG. And then I decided not to, just because of what eventually led to that. And it got me thinking about with Sergey, just his year. And definitely when that article drops, I will definitely post it to my Twitter if you want to give it a read. I'm just really just reviewing and recapping the best moments of the Lightning season. And I think one of the best moments for me, I'm not going to put it in the article, but coming into this season, I think was really the anticipation of seeing what kind of like more of a polished off Mikhail Sergachev would look like over the last couple of years. And I've said it really since they won the first cup, that, because we all knew what going into that offseason was going to look like with salary cap constrictions and all that fun stuff, that most likely in the future, the team was going to probably maybe dwindle now. I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody would have realized that they would have lost this many pieces. But anytime that happens, it is kind of comforting to have, especially on the defensive side of things on a team, to have a kind of up-and-coming player, young player who really kind of you see develop and turn into a leader in front of your eyes. And that's been really the whole selling point for Mikhail Sergachev since he was 21. And don't get me wrong, that is 100% that has been the case. But as I stated before, he still has been rough around the edges. Now, as for this year, I really thought we were going to see that level. I really thought we were going to see the top of the peak, the future leader of this defensive core, and kind of like the next in line after Hedman retires or leaves or whatever the case may happen with all that. Now, having said that, and I think you've all kind of realized it by now, if not already, that I was very disappointed this year. Like I said, I really thought that we would have seen more out of him, especially early on. You would have thought maybe there was going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on kind of leading by example with him because of the absence of Vasilevsky. That wasn't the case. This defense was an absolute nightmare. But at the same time, he also missed a bunch of games. Like I said, 48. That is a lot. That is a lot of games. That is more than half the season. And what I'm really trying to say is that, or more so answer the question, has he hit his prime? And I think the easy answer here is no, because you can't really, he's turning 26 in June. So, you would have ideally liked to have had that answered in his mid-20s at 25, especially since he's been in the league 8 years, 7 of those in Tampa Bay. I mean, I don't really know if you want to say he was in Montreal for a year. He played 4 games there, so if you want to throw that out. But really, at the end of the day, I can't really make a fair statement by saying we have seen his full potential. I think that next year, this upcoming season, and this goes hand in hand with our third segment, expectations, will we see his prime? Well, I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, the guy's been with the franchise since he was 19, and, obviously you're hoping for someone who's been in your organization, especially at the NHL level, for as long as they were, and for as well as they've played over those 6 years, that you're going to see that guy morph into the next big thing for you. And I think that we have seen flashes of his potential or his ceiling. I think that the one thing I could say about him that gives me hope that he is really going to be as good as we all have been thinking or hoping that he was going to be is, and this kind of goes back to my frustration, is he has such a knack for shooting the puck through traffic and scoring, or causing a deflection, which obviously leads to an assist. And I think that that's something that really, not only he did, but also just these defensemen got away from this year. I think that really we could all agree early on, and that's partially the reason why Kucherov really, a lot of the offensive burden was laid on his shoulders. But I feel like this team in general just got away from really getting their defensemen offensively involved. The days of kind of just telling your defenseman, you're going to play defense and you're going to cycle the puck around and then stay out of the way. Those days are over in the NHL. We got defensemen, scoring 20, 25 plus goals a year now. We got defensemen that skate better than some forwards in the league. And I think, I don't think Sergachev's going to be the next Kyle McCarr. I don't even know if he's going to be the next Adam Fox or close to that. But I could tell you that if he's aggressive, if Cooper kind of just lets him loose a little bit, and that's part of the reason why I'm also not being harsh on him, is because I'm sure some of it has to do with strategy. But, that's the thing. I don't think that he has fully reached his prime. I think he's right there. I think that if his prime is a 10, he's had a 7. Some nights he's had an 8. On other nights he's a 2. So really it kind of is, it's a mixture, a cocktail, if you will, of things that need to go right for Mikhail Sergachev next year. And we'll talk about that in the third segment, expectations. And that's not only statistical stuff, but also just performance as well. But yeah, I mean, let me know. Do you agree? I think a lot of you will agree with me on this. I would really like to see, in a perfect world, which the Lightning are going to have to make some moves in the offseason for us to see this. But I kind of want to see him play on the first line, which kind of involves Hedman moving down to the second line. I'd prefer to see, and I'm not even going to talk about it. If you want to go back to the episode last week where I basically put on my GM cap and I talked about all the moves the Lightning need to make, but I think it's time to kind of throw him on the first line and, kind of have Hedman, even though, yes, he is Victor Hedman and he has done so much for this franchise and he hasn't really played like Victor Hedman defensively. Offensively, the numbers have been great. We'll talk about that when we do his review. But yeah, let me know. I mean, how long really is the question I posed to all of you? How long until we see the prime of Mikhail Sergachev, the full potential, come to the surface? So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to wrap things up with our expectations for 2024-25, all that fun stuff. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about our last sponsor on today's show, and that is our friends over at Policygenius. Now, Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you could provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies and their team of licensed experts on hand to help you talk through picking the policy that is perfect for you. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will talk you through the process step by step. Easily compare quotes from top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. So one last time, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel there. You can find some more of my work outside of the podcast on Bolt by the Bay. Give me a follow on Twitter at DankyDank, DenkyD8NK. So I think we did a few of these last year, the reviews. But I have to say, probably my favorite thing about doing these reviews is just expectations, or I guess we could say soft predictions. I guess that's a good way of putting it. So I think we could agree at this point that the 2023-24 season was we could take a mulligan on that for him, for Mikhail Sergachev. I think we could all agree. Listen, the guy just did not have good luck health-wise this year. We're not going to use that against him. But fully acknowledging with the time that he did play, it was less than stellar. It could have been a little bit better. It could have, if he played a little better, maybe we see somewhat of a different Lightning team. That's really, some of you may agree, some of you probably won't. I don't think so. I'm inclined to wishfully think that, yeah, but at the same time, no. But as for next season, my expectations for him are probably higher than they have ever been going into any season for Sergachev. That's because obviously he has to make up on ground. He's going to be 26. The Lightning, unless they follow my plan or my hopes of what they need to do in the offseason to get back to being a cup contender, he's going to have to step up regardless of that. But if the Lightning don't have a good offseason, it's going to be even more imperative that he does have a good season. One of my expectations is that he gets more involved offensively. And also on the other side of that his defense play is it has to be better. It's turning over the puck at the blue line consistently, or getting your pass picked off and it going down for odd man chances. That may have been cute when you were 23, 24, 25 even, but you're 26, you're one of the leaders on this team. You were given an extension, 8-year contract. You got to start playing up to that level. You got to start playing up to that potential. I'm not saying go out there and win Defensive Player of the Year. Don't go out there and win the Hart. I'm not saying he has to do all that stuff. What I'm saying is he just needs to be a leader. And like I said, and play a good defensive game. I'm not expecting a Norris Trophy anytime soon, but he's a leader nonetheless on this team, and he needs to start playing like one consistently. That's every shift. That's really what it comes down to. At the end of the day, it's a team, and everybody likes each other and everybody gets along, and we love him as a player and we've thoroughly enjoyed. But he needs to put his best foot forward and play well so the team could make decisions. I'm not saying that the Lightning, are going to give up on him and trade him away. That's not what's going to happen. But the Lightning could better plan for the future if they know this guy is fully ready to step into Victor Hedman's shoes. That's what I'm getting at here. I would like to see the offensive stats better than 22-23. So just to recap for some of you that don't remember, 22-23, played 79 games, 10 goals, 64 points. I would like him to get maybe 15 goals, maybe 20, being a little selfish here. Maybe finish with 70, 75 points. I think the 75 points, is very doable because he is very good, like I said, getting the puck through traffic, letting it bounce off teammates, going in. He is a very good passer, all things considered. Like I said, his turnovers here and there, his puck possession needs to get better. Offensively, I think he's going to be, I expect more just because I know that's one of the strong points of his game. And then on the other side, the last thing there with expectations, he's got to be an anchor, which means he's got to stay healthy. I know bad luck with the broken leg and all that stuff, but everything else, whatever issues you're dealing with, you got to figure it out and just play through it. I would like to see him play 82 games, especially because we know Chernak is going to get hurt. That's just a given at this point. Hedman will probably miss a couple of games here and there. You never know what Lilleberg, what's going to happen with him. Crozier, if he is brought up to the NHL level, if Hayden Fleury stays in Tampa Bay. There's a lot of question marks at the defensive position right now for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but the one we don't need is with 98. So let me know in the comments below, what are your expectations? What is on your wish list to see out of him? What are your predictions? Let me know all in the comments below. And tomorrow, we're going to continue, really this whole week, we're going to continue our player reviews. And tomorrow we are going to discuss Eric Chernak. We're going to review his season. I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for that one or been wondering when that's going to come along. So stay tuned for that. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.